All right. Looks like we're ready to kick off our third panel here, Security Token Exchanges as a Digital Securities and Tokenization Summit. We've got an awesome panel of folks here from all around the world representing different security token marketplaces and exchanges. So I'll first introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Herwig. I'm the founder and CEO of Security Token Group. So we have a consulting arm helping issuers and investors understand and apply security token technology. And we also run Security Token Market, where we plug in and we track all of the various data and trading information from the various security tokens from marketplaces like tZERO, like iStocks, like Archax, and like BlockTrade. So that's who we have on the line here. I'll hand everyone a quick 10 seconds to kind of introduce themselves and what they do at their respective companies. We'll start off here with Solomon. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me. I'm Solomon Tesfaye. I'm the Vice President of Business Development and Capital Markets at tZERO. Background's primarily investment banking, venture capital operations. I'm in charge of all strategic partnerships and evaluating what issuers should come onto the platform. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Bernard, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Doing great. So my name is Bernhard Blaha. I've been in the blockchain industry for the past 7 years. My background is technical and financial, both of them, and I'm very much looking forward to having this panel. Something that I should add is I'm the CEO of BlockTrade, an exchange that is based in Luxembourg.
Thank you. Simon, what do you got?
Hey, yeah, nice to see everyone today, and welcome to the audience. Simon Barmby here. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Archax. My background is in capital markets. I've worked in it pretty much all my career. And at Archax, we're building a digital asset ecosystem regulated by the FCA here in London.
Thank you. And Darius, I know I introduced you from iStocks, but I know you got a big announcement, so I'll let you kind of take it away.
All right, so just to let everybody know, you heard it here first. iStocks has rebranded to ADDX, addx.co. Check us out on social media and on Google. ADDX, we're ADDX now. So no longer iStocks, we're ADDX. And ADDX is the world's first security token issuance, exchange, and custody trading platform all in one, right? So we're an integrated solution regulated right out here from Singapore by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Pleased to be here.
Thank you, Darius. And you're one of the founders of iStock, correct?
Yes, right. I'm the co-founder and CEO of iStocks.
Thanks for joining us. Awesome. As everyone can see here, we have a really diverse panel. We got the United States, we got Luxembourg, we got the UK, we got Singapore. So I think that's the best place to start. Let's go around the room and tell us each, maybe Darius, you can kick it off with how is your regulator treating security tokens? How's the ecosystem been forming in your respective jurisdiction?
ADDX is the trailblazer in the security token ecosystem here. We actually have a very good working relationship with the regulator, the MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore. The way that they work is a balance of both strict regulation as well as regulatory innovation and accommodativeness, right? So the way that they put Singapore on the map in terms of being a global financial center, competitiveness, and so on, is to compete on the basis of trust coupled with innovation. So they've managed to strike that balance, and we are the beneficiary of that. So we've worked together with them to co-create a lot of the regulatory frameworks within which security token issuance, custody, and trading operate. And we're really the first out the door, and we're very happy to have this working relationship with them.
That's really great to hear. Singapore has been a big region hotbed for security tokens, so we'll tackle that a little bit more later. Simon, how has the FCA been treating you guys? I know you guys were the first approved security token marketplace to be blockchain based. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, we have a great relationship with the regulator too, and I think the FCA is kind of seen as one of the world's tough regulators. It's an established capital markets, London, obviously, and they're a pretty tough regulator. But when we engaged with them, they had a pretty clear vision and view around the whole crypto world and sort of compartmentalize things accordingly. So cryptocurrencies unregulated, utility tokens unregulated, stable coins are e-money, so covered by the FCA e-money regulations, but digital securities or security tokens, I mean, they just treat them like securities, so regulated. Yeah, we got our regulation through last year, so we're the first to get a digital securities exchange license here from the FCA in London, which is great for us, obviously, but I think a great milestone for the industry too, and also a sort of custody license. So we're regulated for the custody of digital assets as well as non-digital things as well. So, but a forward-thinking regulator, a tough regulator, but a great relationship with them.
That's really great to hear about the FCA. Bernard, you're kind of dealing with a bunch of different regulators in some cases, right? You got the European Union, you got Luxembourg, you might be going through a couple different countries across Europe. How are you guys structured?
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. So essentially, when we're talking about regulation within the European Union, there's always the EU Commission that has a hand in what's going on. And I've been working with quite some regulators in the past. And what I can say is that the CSSF, which is the Luxembourg regulator, is really trying to be very innovative and moving rather quickly. So from all the past experience that I've had, I think I've never received replies and also replies with some really good content as fast and as extensive as we have from the CSSF. So quite happy with that. On the other hand, of course, I've talked about that in my presentation before. We have the EU Commission that is right now putting themselves in quite a good position to actually establish a competitive marketplace on a global scale with what they're doing with MiCA and all the other projects that they have ongoing. So very optimistic for the future for our market here.
Very good to hear that you're able to navigate that. And that's definitely no easy feat. And glad to hear that the regulators are actually responding and getting back to you. It's really great. Solomon, obviously the United States is the trickiest and the most strictest sometimes seen regulator in the world. So tell us, T0 has been live for some time. Tell us.
Absolutely. So we have a great relationship with the regulators, especially given the longevity we've been in the space. They appreciate that we've taken incremental steps as opposed to not seeking their guidance. And keep in mind, 40% of our pipeline is outside the US. So oftentimes they're setting up SPVs in the Caymans, for example, and then they want the SPV to trade on our platform. And in that case, we may have to work with the local jurisdiction, Cayman Council, as well as naturally we're regulated as a venue by SEC and FINRA naturally. So there's a lot of dynamics there, but we have a great relationship with them, and they've definitely appreciated the fact that we're taking a very conservative approach to kind of building out the ecosystem and the type of assets that we're kind of trying to attract to the platform as well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. We've been watching T0 closely. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more since you guys are one of the few here that have already launched and are already trading. What's been your approach to identifying issuers? Is there a specific criteria? What is the sort of process looks like for listing on T0?
Absolutely. So we have naturally conduct formal business, legal, and reputational due diligence on every asset. So on our legal perspective and our compliance perspective, a lot of them are coming from traditional backgrounds. And then on my team side, a lot of them are ex-investment bankers, private equity, and so forth. So we're really screening everything from a very more conservative standard, if you will. And then from an ATS qualification perspective, there is a minimum size. Right now, we've outlined as close to 10 million as possible in terms of equity float on the platform. Naturally, if it's a much more conservative asset, we're willing to go lower than that. But as you can imagine, at this point in time, the worst thing we could do is one of the worst things we could do is onboard the wrong asset, because no one's going to blame NASDAQ if a stock goes downward, but they will bring T0 into the picture of not doing appropriate due diligence if we onboard the wrong asset. So from that perspective, in terms of sourcing, we have established a lot of partnerships. We're agnostic to a lot of degrees with tech, whether a third party tokenizes the asset, and we're simply looking to onboard the asset. We have no issue with that. We're just trying to attract high quality assets. And then we have a lot of relationships similar to a NASDAQ, their relationship with it to an investment bank in terms of an on-ramp to an IPO. We have a lot of relationships with middle market investment banks, law firms, consultant agencies, and as I mentioned, tech providers, whether it's transfer agents that are all recognizable names to us in the blockchain world, or traditional transfer agents like Computershare and cap table management providers. So that's how we kind of source, and then naturally we do formal screening. And we always do initial due diligence even before we're willing to engage with a client. So aside from any economics, we will always screen an actual asset on the front end of any relationship.
Makes total sense. Appreciate you sharing that with everybody. Darius, you guys have also facilitated quite a few offerings, both on the primary side as well as I think you guys offer some secondary. So maybe tell us a little bit more about the same deal. How does it work over in Singapore, and how does it work with?
Of course. So on the edX side, one of the things that we stand for is transparency. So we're very transparent about the kind of criteria that we use to screen and onboard issuers of different tokens representing different asset classes, right? So throughout the lifespan of edX to date, we have 11 high quality issuances for debt tokens, and the rest of them are fund tokens. And these are big names, backed by sovereign funds and so on. So we do have a very stringent selection criteria. And we screen them based on a very transparent set of listing rules, right, that are actually available on our website. So please take a look at that. But on top of that, we do have, and this is maybe a bit unique in the security token world, an independent listing committee, right? Not unlike, for example, the Singapore Exchange has a listing committee and so on, but so do we. And these are industry veterans, right? The former CEO of banks and these sorts of people. And they perform the last approval before any asset goes onto our platform. So as you can tell, we are a platform, and the success and failure of platforms like us is basically one of trust, right? So the moment you lose trust in your users, it's probably game over. So we take this very, very seriously, and our listing process, all the way from submission to screening to all the way to listing committee approval, is a very, very stringent one. Only the highest quality assets get onto our platform.
Got it. Makes sense. Appreciate you giving us that picture of how to apply. Simon, I know Archax is getting ready to go live, and I'm sure you guys are already preparing some offerings. So, same deal. How's
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we're planning to go live September time, so getting ourselves ready for that. We've got a decent pipeline. We've got around 50 issuances lined up that want to list with us. It's been an interesting journey. In the early days, we were out sort of looking for people to come and list, and now people come to us, which is nice. So we get a sort of steady stream of new things coming, and quite a variety too. I mean, like Solomon said, we're sort of global. We're attracting interest from different parts of the world, people who want to come and list on an FCA regulated venue, and a real mix of, we're kind of as agnostic as we can be. We're sort of blockchain agnostic in terms of the token creation side. We're underlying asset class agnostic, as long as the resulting instrument is a regulated security in the eyes of the FCA, then it can list on our market. So a broad range of underlying asset classes. I think we're probably going to talk about some of them later. A broad range of values, but it's exciting. I think probably the action at the moment is kind of at the sort of asset classes that are maybe illiquid or hard to trade. Currently, quite a lot of assets around in that category, but also firms looking to raise money. I mean, we have a primary raise capability too. In fact, we've just completed our first sort of test raise on that. So, helping sort of small startups and SMEs raise money, and then providing with a marketplace to list on afterwards.
Fantastic. We're seeing a lot of different use cases from our participants here, which is great. Bernard, I'm not as familiar with BlockTrade. Please give us all a moment to tell us a little bit more about the services that you offer, and maybe some of the progress that you've had either with some of the clients or potentially upcoming listings.
Absolutely. So one of the most interesting things that I can talk about, and that's not necessarily related to listing securities, but also kind of essentially what we're doing currently and what we're in the process of doing right now is actually tokenizing our shareholder structure. So in my presentation, I talked a bit about how BlockTrade is essentially crowd-owned. And by doing this, or when doing this, we of course had in mind that securitization of such assets, as in this case our actual equity, would be quite beneficial to an exchange that is aiming, of course, to become a player in the secondary market for securities listings. In terms of actual listing securities on BlockTrade, this is something where we are, I guess, as the European Union as a whole, still in kind of a waiting position for how this is going to continue, how the regulators will decide, especially how the EU Commission is going to proceed with that matter. We've said before, essentially all the regulators in the EU are kind of waiting for what the EU Commission is doing here, especially with MiCA. So that is what we are doing as well as many of the others. However, that doesn't mean we're just waiting for them to finish that. I'm not a fan of just waiting for regulators to wrap up whatever they're doing. So currently what is happening all around us, and we are taking quite a big part of that, is the tokenization, or essentially kind of the primary market. So the tokenization of such assets and finding out the best legal structures to work with that, actually getting the projects onboarded so that when it's finally possible to list or create a secondary market for these assets, then those assets will already be available in the European Union as well.
Sounds like a very creative approach to getting around the regulators as they get everything ready.
Oh, no, definitely not getting around them, just working with them and essentially giving them what they need in order to solve the marketplace problem that we will inevitably face once that is ready on their side.
Totally makes a lot of sense. And do you plan to, you said you're going to eat your own dog food. Is it going to be similar to sort of what we've seen with Solomon and the T0 token? Or are you guys planning to just do traditional equity, or are you allowed to share anything on that? Just quite yet.
Not allowed to share a lot of detail about that. What I'm definitely not a friend of, and again, not sharing any specific things about our project here, but what I'm definitely not a friend of is essentially saying it's ownership of a company and then, for example, what we're seeing in crowd investing quite a bit, just making it a loan and selling that as kind of investing into the company. That is not what I'm a fan of, so that is definitely not what is going to happen here. More details than that I can't share, unfortunately, just yet.
Fantastic. Might as well put, since Solomon and T0 already have sort of a product of their own. Simon, you plan on eating your own dog food at all our checks? Anything you comment there?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any firm plans for a token as yet. The money we've raised has been straight equity route, sort of fairly normal financing. So that was the route we took initially to get ourselves to where we are today, and that gives us what we need to for our regulatory capital and to launch. But yeah, I mean, certainly in the future, I mean, we're certainly helping others with the whole digital path, and that's definitely something we'll consider in the future, but no firm plans right now.
Makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. And Darius, I'll ask you the same thing. And also, why don't you tell us a little bit more? We're all suffering here on this panel from a chicken and an egg platform problem, right? You've got to take good assets and bring them to your market, but you've also got to bring lots of investors and make them interested. So tell us a little bit more how you're tackling that challenge as well.
All right. So on the first question, well, you might have seen some of our news releases that we just raised $50 million US dollars in our A round. We're very happy about that. So that's basically through the traditional routes, and we have a nice suite of people on the cap table, including sovereign-backed funds and that sort of thing. So that should get us onto a very steady sort of rhythm. Nothing stopping us. We're fully ready to list our own shares on edX. No firm plans yet, as similar to Simon, but technologically we're all set. So when we're going to pull the trigger, we could. On the second question about the chicken and egg thing, we believe that it's all about good issuers, right? So if good products are on the platform, the demand will naturally come, right? And edX is open to people from literally all over the world. Well, all over the world except the US. So sorry, Eric, sorry, Solomon. You guys got to wait a little bit, but everybody else, you're free to come on and partake. But if they come on and they download our app and they see stuff that's not very blue chip, that's not very the returns are not attractive relative to the risk, then of course nothing's going to happen. So we're very, very focused on getting very good products and very interesting products, and not just the low risk or the very high risk, but everything in between, right? So the way that we think about it is it's like e-commerce platform. You come on, you'll be able to see all the wares, and you'll be able to find something that you like, no matter who you are. So I think that's really the way that we think about edX going forward. And when we have this suite of products, all high quality, all passed by our listing committee, along the different stages of the risk profile, we're done. The demand will come.
Makes sense. Sounds like investors will be able to have a lot to choose from in terms of what entices them.
Yeah.
So, Solomon, we lost you for a little bit. Why don't I ask you the same question here? Chicken and the egg problem. How, we've seen T0 done a number of partnerships in the last few months to expand on the asset side of things. Is it safe to say that's where your focus is? We know that you've partnered up with a couple of different institutional and registered investment advisors and things like that to also expand into the investor side of things. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about your book.
Absolutely, and I echo a lot of the comments that Darius made in terms of just focusing on high quality assets. A lot of folks don't realize that one of the broker-dealers we own, because we own 3 broker-dealers, one of them that we acquired is SpeedRoute. SpeedRoute is a routing and execution business for about 30 billion shares last year of traditional equity, public equity, for about 150 broker-dealers. And so the unique thing that we are fortunate enough to have is that we don't have to create liquidity completely organically. We can get those broker-dealers like D.A. Davis and Piper Sandler to subscribe to our ATS, and then they give their investors, hundreds of thousands of investors, access to our platform. So those 2 broker-dealers I just mentioned did subscribe. And so then any ticker we onboard onto the platform, now that we have the benefit of all this broker-dealer connectivity, and these are already clients of our subsidiary, we're just expanding the relationship. And it's basically the responses to the ones that aren't subscribing is basically get more assets, and then get assets that we think our investors will like. And by all means, we will subscribe because we're not starting those conversations cold. And so that's why we've been forming all these partnerships to act as on-ramps, to create this web effect, if you will, similar to NASDAQ's relationship with any investment bank, right? In an IPO scenario, we're doing the same thing with middle market investment banks, issuance portals, law firms, as well as consultants across the globe, as a matter of fact, and as well as tokenization providers, since we also are blockchain agnostic. In terms of our integration with third-party blockchains or third parties, transfer agents, or whatever the case may be, it's all driven by how quick the asset that they're working with is seeking to onboard onto the platform. And then we just put them in chronological order.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Bernard, you said that you're just focusing right now on obviously getting some primary offerings off the ground. We've heard a little bit from Solomon on the types of assets that they're looking for. Darius, said that ADDX, they've listed debt products and fund products, and Simon's looking at SMEs and all kinds of different agnostic type offerings. So do you guys have anything specific in mind? How are you sort of approaching how you're going to onboard potential issuers?
Unfortunately, I can't share too many details about the ongoing projects that we have. So what I can tell you is that we have some very interesting real estate projects that we would like to get off the ground quite quickly. So what I'm aiming for here is to actually open up markets that so far the audience that would be interested in such markets has not been able to access as easily as they will be able to do at a later point. And tokenizing actual real world assets is something that we are currently focusing on and that we will be releasing in the depending on how the timeline evolves around on the regulatory side, but within the next months to 2 years, I'd estimate.
Understood. And I'll ask you another question to follow on sort of what is your approach to the educational barrier that this industry faces, right? We've got both sides. Issuers, I think, are starting to understand it better. Investors, I think, are just starting to understand what the concept even is. I think a lot of that obviously has to do with cryptocurrencies, creating a sort of separate narrative around what digital securities are. So what's been your approach with Blocktrade on how you're sort of educating investors or trying to differentiate away from crypto?
I think we shouldn't differentiate away too far, actually. That's important to understand, because in the end, what we're still doing is we're having this underlying technology, and this underlying technology needs to be understood. Because if it's based on that, we won't ever get away from that fully, and we shouldn't, because that's the whole benefit of it. However, in terms of what we're doing to lower the educational barrier is whenever we develop our product, whenever we develop anything new, be it a new market or just be it further steps in developing the product as such, we are always putting up a development first perspective. Education first perspective. So what the idea here is that wherever a user is, they should be able to get all the information about what they're seeing, what they're supposed to do, what they're working with at this point in time. And again, the idea here really is that no user can say that they didn't have the opportunity to learn about the assets, to learn about the market that they are dealing with wherever they are on the product or whatever they are dealing with on the website.
Understood. Darius, is that your approach as well in terms of, I know you guys have focused heavily on creating a lot of great content out there and trying to educate people on what this technology is. What's been your...
Absolutely, Harik. You might have seen, and I welcome everybody to take a look at our website, download our app. You'll see a whole slew of educational articles, webinars that we put out. And it's education is always the name of the game. And people, like Bernard said, we have to understand what we're getting ourselves into. But that said, I think the approach that we've taken is not to focus too much on the technology itself, But the reason why people come onto platforms for private market assets, right? And the reason why people want to come on is to make money, right? So they come on. So we need them to understand the risk and return profiles and the characteristics of the asset class that they are investing into, right? Be it in tokenized form or not, right? So if it's like structured credit, or if it's like wholesale bonds, or it's private equity, or whatever else it is, they have to understand what this is. The fact that it exists in digital format, great, because it enables things like fractional ownership and that sort of thing, which is great. But we focus on the value proposition and not so much on the technology. They want to find out more about the technology, we will tell them, but that's not the starting point. It's like if you go to NASDAQ, you don't tell NASDAQ, like, can you tell me more about your underlying technology? No, that's not the point, right? I want to buy Tesla shares or Apple shares or whatever. That's the point, right? So that's our starting point.
Understood. Appreciate that. Sort of two different approaches, and I know I want to pass it on to Solomon because I've actually had the pleasure of being allowed to use T0 and check it out. So I know you guys have taken much more of an approach to being much more like the traditional trader, right? Being able to kind of be familiar with the interface that they're dealing with, not necessarily so much tokenization as sort of the forefront of it. Is that fair to say?
That is absolutely right. We take an approach very similar to what Darius outlined, where from a user experience perspective, it's very intuitive. It's basically like you're on Robinhood or E-Trade or Schwab in terms of the user experience, but also when we're interacting with clients, that's why we've hired so many traditional capital markets folks to really bridge the gap from even a verbiage standpoint. When we talk tokenization to a lot of these players, they're not as familiar, but if you're saying digital securities or digitization, it suddenly bridges the gap, right? And really, we also don't necessarily focus on the technology per se as much as well, because really, if they're coming to us, they're looking to have a conversation around liquidity, or they're trying to give their investors liquidity optionality, or if they're an investor, they're looking to get access to a more elusive asset class where typically the equity check would be too high for them to participate in potentially. And so we really focus on the value proposition. And we always use the example, if I go on Amazon, I don't care if it's coded in PHP or Ruby on Rails or whatever the case, I want my package in 2 days. And so really we're focused on that piece for the most part, but naturally we have a lot of intellectually curious clients as well that definitely want to get into the weeds, and we're happy to always provide a much more detailed demo. So it's just not usually core to the sales proposition.
Makes a lot of sense. And Simon, you guys are gearing up here and ready to go. We've heard a lot of different approaches to kind of education and treating investors. What's your take? How are you targeting?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, my career, I've worked in traditional financial markets, so I have a lot of former colleagues and peers. And when I meet them and start to explain what we're doing, and they hear crypto and they think Bitcoin, drug dealers, money laundering, there's quite often a bit of a blinkered view. People don't understand the market because they haven't been told about tokenization and some of these new concepts. But the great thing is when you do take the time to talk to them and explain exactly what you're doing, they get it and they completely understand it and they believe in it. So it's not like you're trying to convince a skeptical audience that something is good, or you're just having to educate people because they haven't been educated yet. So yeah, we have quite a program of, we publish articles, we work with, people like you guys at STM. We sponsor some of the, there's a broker club in London, for example, that we sponsor. So we're sort of spreading the word as much as we can. But a bit like Solomon said, I look forward to the day when we don't care about the technology anymore. It's just the way the markets operate. When we send an email, we don't worry about the protocol being used. When we surf the web, we don't worry about TCP/IP. And the minute the technology is important because it's different and it's allowing people to do different things. But the time will come when the technology will just be accepted, and then we can focus totally on the use case.
Understood. Appreciate that. Makes, again, a lot of sense. Next, I kind of have a bit of a hot take. I don't think we need to spend too much time on the questions since we're nearing the end of our panel here. But, Solomon, you already mentioned the idea of it, and I want to see what everybody else thinks. But the idea that, you could create one master order book by partnering up with several different liquidity partners and venues is sort of a powerful trend, right? And we see this as a global phenomenon. Hence that we have 4 different jurisdictions on this panel here alone. So quickly, we'll go around the room. Maybe we'll kick it off with you again, Simon. Do you foresee yourselves eventually partnering up with other platforms, some of the ones on this call, others in the UK? Are you very focused on just sort of cornering one jurisdiction, or do you have a global outlook when it comes to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about this industry, this sort of, digital industry, is everyone's helping each other, everyone's working together. There's a bit of a family feel to it. And although there are overlaps in all that we're doing, we're all working to one aim and to a common good. So we have a lot of conversations with other markets in other parts of the world, and we're certainly very open to, sharing listings, dual listings and things like that, sharing liquidity, helping people raise money in different regions. So, I think I'm sure partnerships will evolve and we will work together to a common aim. We're not so arrogant to think we're going to be the only game in town globally. We want to be one of the winners, obviously, as I'm sure everyone else does on this call, but partnerships will be key, and we have a number of discussions in process.
Makes sense. Darius, right now you guys are restricted to United States investors. A partnership of some sort going to fix that? What's been your approach? Obviously, Singapore has a lot of MAS approved platforms recently, so certainly competition is heating up. Is it collaborative? Is it competitive?
You know what? The security token space is such a nascent space, right? There's so much white space to grow into. So, one can imagine, a steady state where just like traditional exchanges, there's like 2 or 3 in every country and in every major financial center all over the world, interconnected, cross listings here and there and everywhere. I foresee that happening over time for security tokens as well. And the beauty of the security token, unlike the traditional exchange, is that the interoperability will be so much easier, right? Because we are all working on some kind of blockchain protocol. So as long as you have some kind of a cross-chain functionality going on, it's so easy to connect to each other. So I do really foresee that, from the primary side, co-syndication, on the secondary side and the trading side, cross listings and so on, definitely will happen. It's just a matter of time. And we're definitely open to talk to anyone and everyone, and we actually have a lot of conversations going on right this moment.
Well, we'll end on you, Solomon. Bernard, go ahead real quickly. What's your approach? What do you think?
Essentially, I can only agree. And one thing I would add is this is, in my opinion, it's not a matter of time for this to happen. It's happening right now. So we're seeing this for any kind of markets, clearing houses, essentially sharing liquidity, sharing order books. So this is not something new. This is something that has been happening for years now. And so who would I be to say, no, not a good idea? It's definitely a good idea, and it's definitely something that is going to happen.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Solomon, can you expand?
Yes, from a tech perspective, we've already built everything that allows us for interoperability. We kind of think it's inevitable, essentially. And we have ongoing dialogues with different parties globally, especially since right now you can see, like, for example, if someone abroad does a Reg S, we can't bring it into the US in terms of flow back to the US until after a year. And so we don't want to have to limit trading for that particular capital raise abroad. And if we had another partner abroad that could facilitate that while we trade maybe their Reg D in the meantime, there's just so many advantages with interoperability. And then also, just given the fact that we are committed to offer, best execution, we just need to create linkages essentially. But I think as assets start to get bigger that are pursuing this, the market caps are also going to be more conducive for dual listing and so forth as well. But we definitely do not want to be a walled garden. This is our goal, is to really expand this and create that connectivity across the ecosystem.
It's exciting to see everybody on the same page about collaboration and how short-term or how small the industry is now and how big it can be. Let's take advantage of the time we have left here to answer. Klaus Skonning is the CEO of DigiShares. He got a comment here for us, and maybe Bernard, I'll let you tackle this one since I know you have a bit of a technical focus here. His comment is, what's your take on permissioned versus permissionless blockchains?
I'm sitting a bit between two chairs here. So I've been discussing this matter for I don't know how many years now. And generally, from a technical perspective, from a decentralization perspective, I'm not a big fan of permission blockchains. However, from a regulation perspective and from a security standpoint, it will be a requirement to have some kind of permissioned blockchain or some kind of permissioning technology on the blockchain to actually make it happen. So yes, as far as it's required, as far as it's necessary, but please don't start doing permissioned blockchains for everything now, because that's not useful at all.
Understood. And Simon, you mentioned you don't care much for the underlying technology. Does Archax have a stance specifically on this case or not?
No, I mean, I guess we're being led by the market in a way. I mean, at the moment, Ethereum is the sort of prevalent chain that's being used generally. I mean, not exclusively, but it is the one at the front, I guess. But no, we talk to the different blockchain providers, and certainly for financial markets institutions, a permission blockchain would seem to be a more logical fit because they're regulated and will have concerns. But if something was permissionless, but we try to remain agnostic and will be led by the market.
Darius,
I think back to my earlier comment on technology, I think the starting point is always what brings the most value to our users, right? And what helps them make the most money, what helps them have the best features on our platform. When we design our platform, the quickest thing off the bat was permission blockchain, right? Like Bernard said, it was the easiest thing to get regulators comfortable, and that was what we have. Going forward, in 2 or 3 years, I see the permission blockchain bridging into the DeFi world. How that is going to play out, we are working on certain things, and I can't share too much of them, but it's all very exciting. But right now, it is a permission blockchain, but that we think and we see the most value right now being brought to our clients, and that's what we're building right now.
fantastic. Solomon, same question. Permissions. I'd love to hear also on how the SEC has influenced that at all. I think maybe the St. Regis is on the Tezos blockchain. So, please.
Yes, it's really demand focused at this point. Really, we're agnostic from whether we're using Ethereum, Tezos, or any other blockchain. Really, it's asset driven for the most part. You typically a lot of assets will go to our default, which happens to be Ethereum. But we're doing a number of real estate assets on Tezos, and then we also are working with a number of other blockchains and a couple of other assets. So it's really a business driven decision at this point, rather than anything deeper than that.
Totally makes a lot of sense. And then I'll end this on the panel for everybody. We can go around the room as we close out our panel here. Please share with us, what is your outlook for the security token industry, or what is or is there a big announcement that your company has that you'd like to share with everyone? I think now is the time to get that out.
So regarding big announcements, not too many big announcements just yet, but just for those that aren't aware, we are looking to onboard Exodus onto our platform. They recently did their 75 million capital raise, a Reg A plus, 6,800 investors. There's a lot of demand. We have a great relationship with Exodus as well. So we anticipate that coming onto the platform most likely this quarter. And then we also announced Liquid Mining Fund, which is a fund that's also going to come on the platform, invest in Bitcoin mining, hence its name. And then we have a couple of other assets we anticipate announcing as well. So from a direct trading perspective, it seems like we're gaining a lot of momentum. And so we have quite a few sophisticated issuers that we're very, very excited about, and a couple of other developments. And we also plan on converging, which we publicly announced, our crypto business with our private securities business, so that we can collapse the user base, and then also just to give the investors on both sides of the house a great experience moving from Bitcoin into private securities. So that's something that we're excited about. And then also even specific public securities are going to be entered into that ecosystem as well. So it's really going to be a one-stop shop in terms of the T0 experience. But really, really excited for the outlook of this space based on what we're seeing in our pipeline and some of the product initiatives, and look forward to collaborating with everyone on this line and those listening.
Congratulations. That's awesome news. More listings, the merrier. Exodus, largest Reg A Plus offering in history today right now. So super excited for that. Also, Relio is one of STM sponsors, so great for liquid mining pools as well. Looking for those that getting listed there. Bernard, anything major to share?
Just a tad bit early for the major announcements here, but what I can say is we're in the process of wrapping up our crowd-driven capital increase. So we will have some great news to share about that very soon. And also in terms of product development, we are going to have some big announcements in the coming weeks and months.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to those. Simon, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for us, the focus at the moment is really around, the launch and going live and everything. So that's, the big push around that. But, and that's very exciting for us, and we believe will be exciting for the market too. Other things we have underway, I mean, we're in the process of getting our fund management license, which adds to the broker, custodian, and exchange license that we have. And that's interesting because, what we're looking to do is actually create our own range of digital structured products that can list and trade on our exchange too. So as well as providing, a venue for people to come and raise money and to list for trading, we're also looking at actually creating our own instruments that we believe will be quite interesting and different, and having the freedom to do that and have a marketplace to list and trade them on is exciting.
Yeah, that's really great. Very, very exciting news. And I know you guys are nearing that launch. I'm sure we'll get a go live date soon. Darius, end it off for us. What do you got? I know you got a big announcement. Obviously, you're rebranding to ADDX. Anything else about the platform or the portal?
Yeah, our mobile app is launched today. So for those of us here watching us who have not downloaded the mobile app, please go to Apple Store or Google Play Store, ADDX. Your entry into private markets, download it, and you're all set. As for announcements, I'm super excited every time I talk about this because we're going to bring so many more exciting issuances and products to the market. To get a front row seat, you have downloaded the app, sign up for an account. It's super easy, 3 minutes, and you're all set. You have a front row seat for all the announcements. We're moving into new asset classes. Like I mentioned, we are in funds, we're in bonds. We're going to go into equities, both primary as well as secondary or pre-IPO, unicorns, you name it. So those are coming. Watch out for that. It's super exciting.
Awesome. Thank you, Darius. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, Solomon. Much appreciated for your time here today on the panel. Hope everyone enjoyed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.